Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to the final episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast in association with Lucky Star Gym. I'm your host Mike, and with me on today's panel we have Joe and David. There may be others joining, and I've just heard it out loud. I think I should clarify the final episode of this season. Don't worry, it's not going to go forever. I can imagine this is like a VAR goal. There's a load of people celebrating and but show 65 for you this year, and we're going to review the season and then look forward to a very well-earned rest. Engagement is always important. Please keep doing so. There will be lots of nonsense, I'm sure, throughout the summer. Share your thoughts, comments on our episodes. Tell me what you want to hear. I've got some things lined up for next year already, so just tell me what you're interested in. And a big shout out and thank you for those who regularly do it as well. Thank you very, very much. So we are going to dive in. Joe, we just discussed, you were on the show sort of a couple of years ago as a 15-year-old, and now you've learned from the master, and now you host your own podcast shows as well. How's that been going for you? How are you?
I am all right, Mike. Yes, I'll do a little plug here. I am now running football podcasting side at the Sports Tech UK, which is a very wonderful role to have, although as Mike I can assure attest to, it's a very busy thing running podcasts. And it's a lot more of your time, which is good most of the time. But then, for example, when you have an exam the next day and your parents are like, why aren't you revising? But instead you're talking about Sutton MK Dons on the Monday night. It's not so good. But yeah, it's really good. Check us out. There's a lot of Sutton slander on there. So if you want to stand up for me, please do. If you don't, also do that as well. I don't mind. And yeah, I'm good. Getting into the summer. Got a whole new adventure ahead of us. So yeah, all good.
Excellent. Well, it's a long time since my parents told me to revise, so I don't remember what that's like. David, responsible for a lot of the spikes of our listeners in Spain, I should imagine. Keep seeing myself in the charts over there.
That's what I do. That's what I live for, Mike, is a driver of traffic.
So 74,000 devices he's got going on at the same time. But how have you been, David? How are you?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, excellent. So I pre-warned you of this. Neither of you heard the jingle because I was asked for jingles and I'm providing. Okay. But I gave you a little question that we're gonna answer. But first of all, you've got the cracking jingle. Right, I'm not doing it again. I take it you heard it that time because Dan didn't hear it the other day. You're on mute, both of you, by the way.
It auto muted us. Yes, I did hear it.
Yeah, good. How'd you like that? You can answer. It's all right.
It's good. It's like ear tension.
Yeah, exactly. I just need the. I think I need to come in amongst all you lot, one of the home games, and get you all to do the use dance, because that'll be a lot better than that rubbish that I've done there. I've nicked it from someone else, so
yeah, you should come sit with us.
Right. So the question I asked, Joe, we'll start with you, is if you could change one rule in football, potentially to benefit Sutton United, what would that rule be and why?
So I've gone in the vein of from this season in particular. I'd like there to be a revamp of I'd like it to be a revamp of how fouls are given to players over the height of 6'6". So any player over the height of 6'6", you should have a specialist assistant referee who is over the 6'6" or above, so they can sympathise and explain to the referee what it's like. Because having quite a tall team, and even having 6'4", 6'5", but having a striker and a defender who are over 6'6", it doesn't feel like, even if they were hacked to the ground with like instruments which shouldn't even be on a football pitch, the foul would go the other way. So that's my proposal. More sympathy for the tall, and I reckon we would be playoff hunting if that wasn't for Harry Smith would have 40 in the league.
Absolutely, that is a very good rule. So David, you're still on mute. It auto-muted you, so I think it's at the bottom there. What would be your change and why? Oh, sorry, David, it's still muted you. It's at the very, very bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, just whilst David sorts that one out, I'll tell you mine. Mine is a more widespread one. It's where the rules of football deduct points, which is fine, but I'd like to see stronger deductions and let them roll over. So if you get minus 400 points, it might take you 4 seasons to pay them off. And I have no problem with teams like Man City going down 4, 5, 6 divisions and then having to come back up again because they broke the rules.
That would be good.
So it will just be a good deterrent, and it will keep people sort of moving onwards. Right, one second. This is going to just take great thing. David, it's this platform that muted you. So it's at the bottom of the icons. At the bottom of your picture, it should show you as a little arrow. There you go. You're off mute now, but your camera's off as well. There we go. Sorry, gotcha. Yeah. So when I play the videos, it puts people on mute for some reason. I can't work out how to stop that, but we'll all get used to it, I'm sure. So what was your potential rule change, possibly to benefit Sutton, or it doesn't have to?
Joe took the words out of my mouth, actually.
Sorry.
Sorry, this doesn't make for a very good podcast, but I actually was going to say exactly the same as he did. He said it very well, so I won't repeat him.
Fair enough.
But it looked a lot like England-Wales ruck half the time this season when Harry Smith was up front with people climbing all over him. And I think there could have been a bit more empathy on the part of referees.
There was, I think it was Doncaster. It was overshadowed by the penalty incident. And obviously we all know this could be utterly rubbish, but he was wrestled almost to the ground. The ball broke or the free kick was given against us, because obviously big 6-foot fellas can't possibly be fouled. And then that's what caused the free kick, which caused the penalty, and so on and so on and so on. I think it was that game. I can't remember now. But yeah, the idea I'm going to do that is when everyone comes on this season, we're going to ask a little random question, because one thing I realised partway through the season is any new listeners won't have a clue who the voices are, because obviously I get used to your intro, tell you about yourself once, and then it's just a voice. So I'm going to do these kind of questions all the way through the season. Not always that one, but different questions for different people. So hopefully we'll have to knowing me, knowing you. Go on, Joe. Love it. You know you're going to be stealing all these ideas. Right. So, asking back to last summer, David, we'll start with you this time. What were your thoughts on the signings, and what were your kind of genuine hopes as the season started? I know we've got hindsight now, but trying to think back to last summer, what were you kind of expecting and thinking of our signings?
Well, the script last summer was that we'd had a renovation of the squad. Matt had taken inspiration from Alex Ferguson, and that it was time for a change. And I remember that very sunny day when we played Notts County, and was it 5-1?
It was indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and Amari Patrick looked like a world beater. He was connecting down the right-hand side fantastically well with Josh Coley, and it looked like we were set up for a great season. And we'll get into a bit later on what happened, but it was all optimism, I think, or at least it was where I was. And after that first result, I remember I took a screenshot of the league table after the game and kept it on
so
my
did
phone.
I. So yeah. I've done the same thing.
Because I thought this is a moment to be enjoyed, and but it didn't last very long.
No.
And I kept on taking screenshots throughout the season of the league table as it progressed until we got to the final month or two when I got fed up with it.
I did that a couple of years ago. We played Leighton Orient in the very first match. So they'd just come down to the National League and we played them about 12 o'clock kickoff or something. We'd won the game. It was like, yeah, we're top of the league. We're never going to be that high again. So hey. So Joe, what was your sort of hopes, expectations and thoughts of the signings last season?
They were ambitious. There were a lot of EFL personnel, which we haven't really seen over the past 2 seasons. In our signings, Cashkit, Patrick, Coley, Show Me had been with Cole U for a bit. Dino by the time he came in, Aidan O'Brien, stuff like that. Just that day in August was a great day, wasn't it? Joe Kizzy scoring in the second minute. Just what a wonderful performance it was. It wasn't really expected at all because the pre-season didn't go particularly well either. Like losing to Millwall, Aldershot, Woking, I think, drawing at Farnborough. Like it wasn't the best pre-season ever, but we just came out. I mean, what a game it was. The first, I remember just watching it. I was like, well, I don't know what was going on. And Notts County were, I don't think they were particularly like awful. We were just so good that day, and it just looked like everything was maybe going to fall into place this season. As I said, Amari Patrick was just unbelievable that day. Jack Rose was in goal. Well, Jack Rose was at the ground. That's a pro because that's something we can't really say nowadays. And it just was a good time before everything else happened.
Well, for me, I know we don't ever plan things like that, but it did seem that our signings were staggered nicely with, oh, that's a good signing. Oh, that's a better signing. That's a better signing. So every single signing was like, oh my God, I can't believe what's actually happening here. You had, as you say, Omar coming in, who was, I think, in the team of the season for Bromley in the National League. And Christian, a couple steps up, but again, team of the season for Epstein. I think he might have been player of the season. I can't remember. But every single player that came in seemed to be not only an improvement on what was gone, but a step up from each other as well. So I was definitely excited. The Notts County game we both mentioned, the keeper was sent off relatively early, but I
forgot.
I have visions that we either hit the post or the bar, and we had another couple of good chances before that happened. And the keeper that came on wasn't a kid off the bench. He wasn't bringing in one of the academies. It was their first choice goalkeeper from the previous season. So where they scored the second highest number of points in the National League history. So they weren't a bunch of mugs, as you say. They were expected to do well. But we did okay to them. We won against Wickham. We won against
Cambridge.
Yeah, drew against Cambridge and won our first ever League Cup tie at home. Our only ever League Cup tie at home. And we got through to the next round. We were really unlucky with Barrow because Harry got a dodgy red card. Sure, we'll mention these again. Not dodgy, harsh maybe. And we were really unlucky against Gillingham because Scott scored a goal that shouldn't have been given as offside. The more I kind of look at it and think about it, it's like, it can't have been offside. The linesman was explaining that Scott had run back off from an offside position, but it's from a throw-on. So it's like, he can't have been offside. It was a throw-on. So I was thinking we're not doing too bad. Then we played Wimbledon. And that wasn't so great. How were you guys, if you can think back to then, how were you kind of feeling at that stage of the the early start and the loss to Wimbledon. David, we'll start with you on that one. Sorry.
I'm the world's worst at remembering specific games, Mike. What I do remember is funny now we're talking about that game against Notts County that it seems so long ago, doesn't it? Because there's been so many changes in every single part of the team and the club that it almost seems like it was a different season.
Different world.
Yeah.
But were you at that point? I mean, we Joe, we'll come to you. We did then have Newport where we lost to. We then played Wickham away, and that was a great match apparently. Obviously it's away, so I didn't go. And then we had an absolutely terrible match against Forest Green. So, Joe, what were you kind of at that stage of the season? We'd started brightly, a bit of bad luck, but how were you kind of feeling at that point?
I kept telling myself it was just unlucky games. I think Gillingham and Barry obviously. I even think Wimbledon to an extent. I don't think we were like as bad as we were in September, October. I think they didn't play massively well to get a 3-0 win, but they just put the ball in the net and we hit the crossbar. They had cleared off the line. It could have easily been like a 2-2, 3-3, but we just didn't take our chances, which was a bit of a story of our season at the start. Wickham was good. Newport was a bit of a warning sign. I can't remember. Was it 3-1 against Newport? I think it was.
It was indeed 3-1.
It was, yeah. So I like it was again. That was a game which kind of twisted and turned. They got 2 goals late on. The one which really sticks out in my mind because I was there. Forest Green was genuinely one of the worst matches I've ever seen. It was so poor from both teams. They just they were awful. And the fact we lost 1-0 without even putting up much of a fight was just depressing. And that was the point where I actually started to get concerned because even then I could say these are 2 teams who just don't know how to play winning football. And they scored from a goal 20 yards out, which rolled along the floor and just got a bit of a deflection and didn't really do much. And it was just like, that started to concern me. And then it all just, from there, it seemed to unravel a little bit. You could see the kind of the good atmosphere which you saw against Notts, like with Patrick and Cody, as David said, and stuff like that, had just drained out of the squad. And I think it might be some I don't know if it's recruitment, but we had a lot of changes this season. And I think, especially with Amari Patrick, Scott Cashkett, Aidan O'Brien, even players we brought in on loans, like Damani Mela, stuff like that, who I forgot we had until like the other day when someone reminded me. We just looked a little bit unfamiliar with ourselves. Didn't quite know what the plan was, and Matt didn't really look massively confident. He knew that was what was wrong. Which worried me more than when we've lost before. I think that game was more damning than maybe the 3-1 defeat or the 3-0 because it was almost like there was no fight. We just let them sneak a 1-0 win and we didn't really do anything to fight back. And it was almost quite sad at that point, but you have to just, at that point, you just got to hope, say, look, he'll turn it around. Yeah. How did that go? We can talk about later.
I don't know what you guys thought, but it felt to me like it was we had a toolbox with one tool in, and so in previous seasons when we've been successful, we had there was kind of aerial threat, there was a long ball, there was David Ajiboye on the wing, there was on the other wing we had Will Randall, there was kind of threats from different parts of the pitch, and it just seemed from the outside looking in all the time that we had one approach, which was to basically lump it forward and see what happened, and it didn't. And I think that's in a way unfair to characterise the team like that in the last few years, because I think there's a bit more to it than that. But I think the threat just seemed to disappear. And then we got very, very defensively weak. And it just felt there was some inevitability about when opposition teams were attacking on the break. We just looked very, very susceptible to being cut through very easily, kind of knife through butter, no? It just looked too easy at certain points, and I'm not the guy to say what the problem was because the players were basically the same. I don't know whether the system was being changed. I don't know what the reason for that was, but it all just looked too easy in too many games, and we were giving goals away, and it's very hard to win matches when you're giving away a goal or two in the first half or a goal in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You're just always starting, trying to walk up the mountain backwards, difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been around this time I first started saying we were being penalised a lot because obviously we're a big team and we have this, people have this opinion of us as being a bunch of bullies and a strong physical side, and yet we weren't doing any of that. We weren't imposing ourselves on games. We weren't trying to bully teams out of matches, but we were giving away enough fouls that people kept saying it, but we just weren't imposing ourselves. You mentioned the difficulty with giving away goals. Funny enough, the next batch of games were Swindon, where we had a torrid, I think, opening 20, 25 minutes, or half hour, I think it was. Accrington, where I think it was the last half hour of that match, we were awful. MK at home, which, funny enough, that was a game that we should have got something out of, but we did that little thing towards the end of the match where we're going, oh, we're winning this, can't have that. Come on through, young man. Just walk through our midfield and have a little pop, see what happens. We lost to Port Vale in the cup, which wasn't actually that bad because if I remember, we had a fairly second string side out in that one. And then we had Crawley, which was shocking. We lost 3-0 to them, but again, there were some decisions going so dodgy. I posted up some videos of some of the decisions going, this isn't right. And actually, the game that broke a lot of people, I know you mentioned the Forest Green game, that a lot of people were disappointed at, Joe, but the game that lost a lot of people was Salford. I remember coming home and just saying, I can't even do a podcast. How the hell am I supposed to find it? I love finding positives, even tiny things, but I just couldn't find a single thing. So, David, those little batch of games where things were going really, really badly, do you have any memory of that period, or is it still just the same? We're just letting goals in.
Yeah. Well, I still am a massive fan of Matt Gray, and I just wanted to believe that it was all going to come around at some point, and I think it might have done actually still. But it was, but probably we were just ignoring the evidence, I suspect, at a certain level. No, it just wasn't very good. And I do remember, I can't remember the game against where we had a penalty shootout in the EFL Trophy. And I've got to try and remember who it was against now, the one we got knocked out on.
Aston Villa.
Yes.
We got to Villa, but
and Jack Rose is in goal. And there was I don't know if I was imagining it, but there seemed to be some tension between him and the bench or him and the manager about the way the penalty shootout was done. And I might have read it wrong, but it all seemed to be somewhat indicative of relationships breaking down and some kind of confidence getting broken. Of course, we'll never know quite all the ins and outs of that, but something seemed to have gone wrong. And Jack Rose, I don't know where he went, but he didn't appear again, I don't think, after that.
So there's obviously trying to find information from Steve is quite difficult, but apparently he had an operation and it didn't go right, or it made things worse. There was something that had happened that was misdiagnosing that has made it worse, and then he kind of had to sort of go through the whole process again, and it just put back his recovery. So apparently he's still around. He wasn't on the retainer list, so I think he's under contract, but we'll come on to that. But yeah, apparently there was an injury that he was playing through. Dino was brought in because obviously Steve had got injured as well, and they knew they had to rest Jack, but it was made worse. But again, details are quite difficult to get exactly, but it's what seems to piece together. But yeah, so after the Salford match, there was a lot of people who were like, that's it. And I think that was in conjunction with the Forest Green match where we were so poor. But then we had a little false dawn. we had a 45 minutes against Walsall that everyone was standing there scratching their head going, how on earth are we 4-0 up? What was really odd about that is we were 4-0 up by half time and there were still people around me going, I don't know, I still think we could throw this away. We then got beaten by Doncaster quite heavily and Morecambe. I think Morecambe was the game where Amari had a ding-dong or a chat with Bat. I can't remember if it was that one or it was a different one. I think it might have been that one that there was a conversation. But again, that was another one where we just allowed people to walk through and score a late winner. A fairly bright loss to Wrexham. I know that sounds silly, but with good performance, there was a few positives there. How were you sort of there? I mean, the full storm with Doncaster, with Walsall, and then heavily beaten by Doncaster. What were you guys feeling there, or is it just all melding into like this is not going well?
I'll go first. I think that I wasn't one of the only home games I missed this season. I wasn't at the Walsall game. I went to see Farnham Town in the 9th tier go take on Tadley Calaver because why not? And they went unbeaten for the rest of the season. It was a wonderful day. But I kept getting notifications saying we'd scored. And I thought BBC Sport and Sky were, having me on. Yeah, exactly. So, that was a good day. Then Doncaster was an awful day. Morecambe was the one, I think, with Amari. I don't know. It felt... I don't know. I think there was always the risk of the fragmenting of the playing thing, which obviously got worse into November when you lose the big chunk like we have done over the last 2 years of the success in 2021, which is unfortunate, but it's almost like because of what Matt did with that squad, it was almost like there was always maybe slight sense of inevitability when he lost the main core of that. And even if you count in 2022 with the success in the Pizza Cup and the league, I'd say that's even part of it. When you lost that group, it's almost like he's starting from scratch again, which, it's harder to do in League Two than it is in the National League, I reckon. Wrexham, both games against Wrexham were just painful. I can't remember if you Bradford.
Yeah, we're coming to them in 2 secs because there was a little bit of form there. David, what were you kind of feeling about the Walsall match and then the downwards from afterwards?
Well, I remember at the end of the Walsall game, it was 4-1, wasn't it? I think at the end.
4-0.
4-0 was it? Yeah, and I think we're all a bit surprised. And I remember just thinking, we just need another 10 of those. And
another 10.
Well, that was mathematically about what we did need. I remember thinking, well, maybe this is the turning point for the season. But it wasn't. And it got worse, didn't it? I don't know what you can say, really. It was just, I think that it's very difficult to know in these situations quite what's going on. We had some bad luck this year, I think, as well. We signed this guy Cashget from Gillingham, wasn't it? And he played half a dozen games and then got injured and was out for the season. Craig Eastman was injured for a lot of the season. Goodliffe was injured a lot. Harry Smith got a 6-match ban at a certain point, which didn't help very much. Quite a lot of things have gone against us, but I think probably most clubs in the league would have those kind of hard luck stories as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess if you're on a squad which is probably a bit threadbare in terms of quality, then that's where it shows. And I think it probably did. I don't know where we are on budgets in the league. I suspect we're down in the bottom 3 or 4 in terms of squad budget. I don't know. But it showed a bit, and it all, as Joe was saying, it looked like the group didn't really come together. It didn't click on a sporting level, did it? I don't know. They might have all been great people. I don't know. But
great on the training ground.
It didn't click on the pitch. I remember watching 1 or 2 games where Matt was screaming from the sidelines, and it all looked as if So to me, as an outsider, I said, well, some of this stuff looks like that should have been done in training, and we're not on a Saturday afternoon here to keep on practicing what the moves are and who's going where, and it just felt disjointed.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk at the time that they're all really together at the training ground and all this kind of stuff. But Joe mentioned that those 2 seasons of success, and I can't remember when I said it, but I think that's probably harmed us, because those 2 seasons of success has made us realise, oh, this is nice and easy, isn't it? And possibly didn't realise how hard it really was. But we did show a little bit of form. I know it sounds silly, but we beat Bradford, we beat Fylde, we then drew with Colchester, Tranmere, Grimsby and Crewe. There was a loss to Charlton in the EFL Cup, but he definitely didn't. He made that absolutely clear that he wasn't putting a squad out for that, because it was. I mean, I think we had Liam Moore and Cameron O'Sullivan who were both like 16 or 17 on the bench. I would have put them on the side, to be fair. And then we won against Horsham in the Cup. So Matt got through to the 3rd round of the FA Cup, which is something he wanted to do. But there was the same old sort of stories, and we're unlucky and things weren't changing. And there was a lot of talk at the time of a lot of people getting frustrated with those draws, saying we should be winning games, we can't keep drawing. There was a lot of people questioning, and nothing seemed to change. And I think that, as you said earlier, Dave, that's where things started turning for Matt, is where people were saying, no, we've got to change. And he's sitting there going, no, this has worked before, it will continue, it will work, and wasn't potentially being as flexible as could have been. And then, of course, we then faced Stockport, which was an absolute horrendous game. But David, what are your thoughts on that little mini run and then the Stockport match?
Well, being the optimist, being a fan of Matt Grave, what he did, and the way he did it as well, I think, which was very important. The reason I think people had him in such high regard was not just the fact that he created a lot of success, it was also the way he went about it. I wanted to believe, and so when we started to get that little run of draws, I thought, okay, well, maybe this is it. You know, we're turning our corner again. And I thought that having got to the 3rd round of the FA Cup, he would still be in the job to go to Plymouth. I went to Plymouth, and I thought it was very sad he wasn't there. And I think Jason Goodliff did a very good job on that day, actually, because we played pretty well. And I was at the Charlton game as well, and we weren't that bad at all. And against Plymouth, we had a really, really spirited second half performance. And of course, that was the day when the new manager was announced and everything changed.
Yeah. So after Stockport, oh, sorry, Joe, I didn't ask you about the mini run. Go on.
Yeah, FA Cup. FA Cup was FA Cup. The whole thing with Barnsley was interesting. That was probably a high point of our season, being involved in some drama. Again, for a moment of high scoring, I sometimes go to a game, but I wasn't at Stockport. I was actually on the way to an airport to go on holiday. And I was like, yeah, come on, this will be a game that we need to win. And I remember, because we were in like a cab, and I just kept seeing Paddy Madden come up on my phone. And it just kept going, like we're going through security. I remember distinctly in my head seeing the notification as I put it in the tray where it goes through 6-0. And I was like, I cannot believe this. I came out the other side. I wasn't sure if it was 7, but it was just ridiculous. Yeah, it was not a good day. Fair, although I will say now, fair play to the 90 fans who travelled, because I've got some people who support Stockport, I know, and they've given a lot of credit to those fans because they were loud considering the circumstances. But yeah, it wasn't a good mini run. I was part of the crew, which was almost like, yeah, it might be time, because as much as I agree with you, David, that Matt was what he'd done, just got to give him the credit. He had so much credit in the bank. It just, do we care, and this could sound blunt, do we care more about the loyalty to Matt, or do we care more about our EFL survival? And I think we got that balance slightly wrong by the end of it, because those draws were games where we should have turned them into wins and we didn't. And obviously the Amari thing, and there were other players in the squad who were clearly not happy with the way things were going.
Yeah, I mean, it is a debate that's still raging because obviously how the season panned out. But you do wonder, like, I mean, I remember it happened years and years ago. I think Blackpool and Holloway, they were struggling. He took over. They got into the playoffs. He won the playoffs and got up into the Premier League. And it was like, oh my God, what an amazing achievement. Lost a few games in a division he was never supposed to be in, and they got rid of him. It's almost like worth just not winning in the playoffs, wasn't it? But yeah, Matt's departure came. Now, obviously, there's different stories, different reasons. It was a collective, I've been told many times. I think it may well be that he kind of was saying the same things he says in the interview to the board of it's coming, and they were just like, we can't risk it anymore. So they did do it. We discussed it at length at the time. I think it ended up nearly 2 hours. If you want to listen to it, go back there. It was a nice little therapy session for everyone. And then, as you say, Jason took charge for a few games. Again, there was a lot of people complaining that we should have had someone in place, and that is definitely not the Sutton way. You're not going to have someone lined up straight away. But we lost to Mansfield, which wasn't really a surprise. We beat Wimbledon on Boxing Day, which probably was a bit more of a surprise. We lost to Gillingham, and that's where Harry got the second red. Again, a rash challenge, no disputing it. But if the ref had given the foul on Dion a couple of seconds before, it wouldn't have happened. We drew in Newport and we lost in the FA Cup to Plymouth. Just want to say about our cup, we've reached the third round of the League Cup and the third round of the FA Cup, and Plymouth was the highest team, sort of the biggest team we faced. Going into all these draws, going, we could get this person, that person. We didn't get anyone. We got Plymouth away. But what did you think about Jason's little caretaker spell? David, we'll start with you on that one. You mentioned already some of the games there, but what did you think about his little spell and the whole stepping in? And it must have been hard for him coming in for his mate.
Yeah, I would have thought that was very difficult because he clearly would be loyal to the previous manager, and obviously would have known, I suspect, that he wasn't going to get the job. Although I don't know whether he was in the frame for that or not, really, in a serious way. So in the circumstance, I think he did pretty well, which is to get a few points along the way. The Plymouth game, I was there, and it was actually a really good performance, second half especially, and we gave them a game, and you couldn't really ask for much more than that, I think. So no criticism at all. And he clearly cared about the team and the club, and he did his best in difficult circumstances. And I'm not really sure, it doesn't make any difference now what we think, because it's all water under the bridge, isn't it? But I'm not really sure what the advantage was of Matt not being there for those games. If Jason was going to be a caretaker, why not just keep Matt there? I don't know. Because essentially you're going to get the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there would have been a bit more around the whole idea of if they said they're going to replace him, and then they start looking for a replacement, and what happens if he starts winning games? Do you go, actually cancel that, or
quite.
Okay, well done, let's go. But Joe, what were your thoughts on Jason's little tenure as caretaker?
I thought it was promising, but I never thought I always hoped that he wouldn't be the new manager, because I just didn't think that it would work. He's very close with Matt, and he's staying, which actually it did surprise me slightly. I'll be honest, and I love Jason because I think he's obviously he's got Ben, but it surprised me because I thought he was really close with Matt, and I thought they were going to stay as a pair.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long that'll be. It might be just till his contract's up.
Yeah, I think so, because technically we have 3 assistant managers now. we've technically got Mickey, Jason, Anthony, which is interesting. But yeah, the game against Wimbledon was good. That was nice. Top 8 scoring on New Year's Day. That was a nice New Year's Day present. Plymouth was exciting. This is actually my highlight of the season. I don't know if you can do this later, but I'm saying it now. I predicted Steve Morrison would be manager.
Did you?
I did, because being the very culture guy I am, I spent basically half my days during the Christmas holidays checking Sutton United manager betting odds. And randomly on the 29th of December, Steve Morrison went down from 6th most likely to most likely. It was like, then why is that? Because there must be a reason for that. And it was always Mark Bonner or Luke Jarrod of Bournemouth, because Bonner had just been sacked from Cambridge, who were the two top. And then suddenly Steve Morrison went to 4-1. I was like, I know bits about him, but I didn't really know much about him. But I can guarantee he will be the new manager, because there's no other reason for dropping betting prices. And then when I said it to my mate, and I said, look, now get me a career in predicting stocks and make a lot of money.
Right.
But yeah, I'm very happy with that.
I do have a question though.
Yes.
Why are you on betting apps? Did you fake your age?
No, I was on betting apps. I was just on betting websites.
Come on, you shouldn't be allowed. You've got to be over 18. Breaking the law.
Football fans breaking the law.
So, as you mentioned, Steve was appointed. I did speak to him, obviously, which is available. Yes, there was a lot of background noise, and I do apologise about it. But interesting career, Premier League footballer, and he started off in the Championship, dropped all the way down to Ishman, and then up to League Two. So he's kind of like probably in the middle now, where he should be. But we then had not a great start, but not horrendous, with 3 draws with Barrow, Mansfield, and Walsall. Barrow and Mansfield were up there at the time, and they weren't bad draws at all. The Mansfield one was a very windy day, if I remember watching that. Walsall, possibly you could have said, but it was away as well. So again, an away point you've got to respect. Then we had sort of quite a depressing result at home to Harrogate. It was 2-1 in the end, but we were lucky with the 1. How do you guys feel about those kind of games? The start, those 4 games he was in charge. Joe, will start with you on that, but he hadn't actually won a game at that point. Were you still with him, or were you? There was already, after 4 games, people muttering, I have to say, which I found funny. I know why, but I found it funny.
I was with him, wasn't attached, but I was hoping for that new manager bounce, which came 2 months after. Would have been nice if it came a month earlier, Steve, but you did your best. But yeah, Barrow was a really good draw. We deserved that game, I think. On the whole, same with Mansfield. Walsall, I've got to disagree. Walsall, we should have won by 2 or 3. It was genuinely, we could have, like Charlie Lakin. There were just so many chances for us to just get that, and Walsall were awful, and their goal was deflection, and it was not a brilliant goal. It just annoyed me. It was such a good opportunity, and then there was the Harrogate game, which was just awful as well. So I obviously first few weeks you're still moulding your squad, and that was evident by the signings, which they were very unknown, quite unknown signings, to be fair. Like Malarkey had never really outside of the Millwall Academy. Dion Moore had just come from a 7th tier, which is a big jump. Charlie Lakin, obviously, from the moment I saw him come on at Barrow, I knew he was going to be a good player for us. He just fits what we want from in our midfield, just hard working. And for those first 4 games, he was very experimental with tactics. It was very clear he was trying things out. You couldn't pick a team. You couldn't say he was going to start. You couldn't say what formation. You couldn't say what type of football. And that worried me slightly, because it felt like we needed a plan a bit. And once Steve had a plan, which we'll get on to, it was like, yeah, right, we've got a plan, let's go. Stephen Dubicano, another good signing. But it felt a bit haphazard all over the place, which you can expect from a new manager. But when you're in a relegation battle, which we weren't at that point, we were kind of down. So yeah, that's kind of where we were. But there was hope. There was no 4-1 losses.
No, they're all tight. Yeah. So David, how were you kind of at that start of the regime? As Joe said, not attached to him. I think could apply to a lot of people because he didn't portray himself overly well on his interviews. But how were you feeling about his tenure at the time?
Well, it was a slow start, wasn't it? So the interviews didn't endear him to anybody, I don't think. And I suspect he's smart enough to realise that. Because I don't think that helps. But not because it's not about being nice. I think it's just about how you treat people and the sense of it all. But the game, the matches and what have you, it was a slow start. But what was good is that you did start to see a little bit more variety in the play. And there was a couple of games I'm never good at remembering which ones, but I thought, there's some passes being joined up here in the middle of the pitch, and there's a bit more movement. And some of the signings obviously helped a lot in terms of bringing a bit more freshness to the team and youth and energy, and so that was all good. So I think there were some really positive signs, but it was a very slow start. And the problem is that we didn't really need a slow start. We needed to have a very, very sharp bounce because the situation as it's transpired, and we've all seen, we were just a long way behind, and there was a lot of catching up to do. And unfortunately, a slow start, it was probably a bit too slow because we were leaving far. It was all too little, too late in the end, wasn't it? And we could never really depend on winning the last 6 or 7 or 8 games on the spin. But that was always going to be a very hard ask. So unfortunately, I think it was hard for him as well because he took over at a time when we needed a very fast recovery, and that's difficult to get. Yeah.
Well, we kind of we weren't doing badly, as Joe said. I'm not sure we were in the relegation zone at that point. Maybe we were, but we then were playing Doncaster, and there's a good chance to give ourselves a bit of distance between ourselves and Doncaster. And we were winning right away up to 91 minutes or whatever it was. David, I think you were over for that game, were you?
Yes.
We'll talk about that one because it's an easy one to be picking on and going, if only, because there's a couple of if only games, but that's one of the real highlights, especially with what happened to Doncaster after that game. I think they lost once for the rest of the season. But there was Doncaster, another tight loss to Wrexham, and then we lost to Bradford as well on the mud bath of the pitch. But of those games, it was Doncaster really that must have set everyone back. How do you feel about that game and the others shortly after?
Yeah, no, I was there. Well, it was the trouble is you always remember the things. Was it minute 95 when
it was something ridiculous?
Yeah, it was, and it was a real howler because there was no real reason to come leaping out of his goal and jump all over the guy at that stage of the game. And having said that, I think very often we remember these things because it was the 95th minute. Had that happened in the 12th minute, no one would have remembered it. And it's all just part of the game, isn't it? So I'm sure, sorry to repeat myself, but I think all teams in league will have their stories about how they lost points in the last minute this year and how they were unlucky with certain things, or whether had it not been for this or had it not been for that. The trouble is the sum total of all of those things is that's just 46 games of league football, isn't it? And it just happened that stuck in the gullet a lot because it was at that stage of the season we just couldn't afford to lose any more points, or rather not to gain them, because we just didn't have the money in the bank to be able to do that, and that's why it sucked, because we didn't have anything to play with. So giving away those points at that time just knocked the stuffing out of everybody, I think. And just on a purely mathematical basis, we just didn't have enough points to be able to do it. So that was the fun. And that, of course, that goes back to September, October, November.
Yeah, it was a real sort of kick. I mean, I can't remember who was on with me after that one, but I do remember saying, Joe, watching it back, forget the fact he gave away a penalty. let's pretend he won that ball cleanly and he punched it away. What did he think was going to happen next? Because all of our defenders were in the box almost. Yeah. So it was only going to go to their midfield to lob it back in, and he's out of position. But what did you feel about those sort of 3 games? It was the Doncaster we lost late on. Wrexham was a tight loss where we got an apology for a penalty. Yay, thanks for that. And then the bloodbath at Bradford.
Yeah. It was just 3 very annoying games. Donny just boiled my blood. If you didn't see me maybe on Twitter, I have an annoyance now towards Dean Dennis because genuinely he broke my soul that day. I was it was just I didn't have a clue what he's doing. Just came out and UFC'd Joe Ironside for the sake of he was bored and hadn't done much to do. Like, it weren't bad that day. It's just loads of what ifs because there's so many games I can think of. Right, like literally, like genuinely, if we just picked up a win from Donny, Harry Smith had scored a pen, we'd be up. We wouldn't be down. And that hurts because literally they're just like Harry Smith fine penalty. People miss penalties. The Donny one's so unnecessary. I'm trying to think of other games where we just should have won. Walsall again. There are so many games, and I think more under Morrison than Gray, where we are just that close to sparking that run. And that run was sparked because after a while, and the Forest Green game was the game, and it wasn't a classic by any means, but it could have been earlier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the next game on my list was the Colchester one, which is another one of the moments. As David said, it's easy to pick out those moments because there were 2 penalties quite close together. We hadn't had a penalty all season. We've been talking about it. It was only us, I think, MK, who hadn't had a penalty all season. And then we got one. And I realised there was an explanation afterwards, but it did rather look like we didn't know what to do. Sam had the ball and Harry took it, and it looked like they were arguing about it, and then Harry missed. Yes, I understand this explanation now of the player with the ball gets the grief from the crowd and he just hands it on to someone else, and not really sure why it's necessary, but it is. But it is easy to look at those 2 games in particular because one was 2 points dropped and one was, again, we could have won. We didn't get the 2 points, and those 4 points would have made a big difference. But we then did have, the very next game, a ding-dong against Notts County.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Notts County must be fuming. I mean, they hate... there's nothing between us at all but Harry Smith's wave. And they now just absolutely loathe us. We're shit, we're tin pot, and it's like, yeah, but you lost to us twice. So I've got a little bit of Twitter beef going on with some guy who comments under every Sutton post since we went down, and he just posts Harry Smith's a wanker, all this, and I just said, I can't remember if I can find what I said. I think I said. Because I was just like, you're actually going out of your way. Yeah. So he said, hope that Bell Smith enjoys non-league. And I said, you've posted on basically all of our tweets are going down. Focus on finding a new striker. You're looking out the door. And he said, I have because I'm enjoying it. I think it's so funny you're now back where you belong with no plastic pitch to give you an advantage. National League South for Smith soon. And then I can only describe as 25 laughing emojis. So, you know, It just annoys me. And then he also, he tried to do it again. And he said, please give Matty Smith my regards and wave the bell and bye-bye for us. And I thought that was very funny considering you got the wrong tool striker. I said, Harry Smith, get your striker right, living rent-free. He said, sorry, predictive text. He's still a bell and a non-league one now. You must be so ratty. Yeah. You've got 9 goals past you this season. I know. Since August. I mean, I don't know, David, if you were on social media, but it's after every one of our losses, you've got Notts County fans jumping with glee, waving. And it's like, we've forgotten about this 5-1. I'm sorry, we moved on pretty soon afterwards. It's a great result. And we were like, what happened? But they did get upset. But yeah, that was a very interesting game and one that we would have lost at many other points in the season. we were then like, right, come on, that's it. All we got to do is a little run, and then our friends at Tranmere beat us.
Oh yeah.
So we kind of bumped down to earth, and then this is actually where I think the season changed ever so slightly. It was Grimsby, a penalty, and probably the only game of this season where we got more than we deserved.
Yeah.
There were loads of games where we kind of go, oh, we could have got an extra point here, we could have done this. But Grimsby, the Grimsby one, we weren't playing very well, and we snatched the draw. I don't know if you were here for that one as well, David, but what were you kind of thinking about the Notts County win, the loss at Tranmere, and the Colchester draw, and the Grimsby draw as well?
Well, what I was thinking was it was all too patchy, and
Yeah.
what we needed was a string of results, which we later got, but they needed to happen earlier, basically, because we were running from behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe, I know we spoke about the Notts County one, but what did you think about especially the Grimsby game where we did get something from it?
Yeah, Grimsby didn't deserve anything from it. Didn't deserve a pen. We were awful. Yeah, but we got the pen, much to
Fair
many
enough.
Grimsby fans' disappointment. So yeah, I can agree with you that the season turned a bit on that point. We got the first bit of luck we needed, and when you get the rub of the green, things start to go your way. Speaking of green, moving on to Forest Green.
Well, we lost to the Crew.
Oh, I forgot about it.
Yeah, we lost the Crew, but again, at the time they were up there, they were flying, they were doing well. So again, you kind of think, oh, why are we playing all these great teams? But then we did have Forest Green, Accrington, Salford, and Swindon. So Forest Green, Josh scored an absolutely cracking goal. He came into some really good form towards the end of the season. Accrington, where we wore the nice aubergine shirts, which I love. I thought I'd wear this one because it's got the EFL badge on it, and I'm clinging until the tables are released, saying we're in the National League. I'm still clinging. So, what were your thoughts on those 4 games? I mean, I haven't looked this back at all, but I suspect that's our longest winning run in the EFL. I haven't actually looked that up at all. That's just made up rubbish. But Joe, what were you thinking on those 4 games? The 4 of the 8 cup finals they kept talking about.
Yeah, love the cup finals. Forest Green, yeah, Josh Coley, he rediscovered his Notts form of 1 game. And yeah, I always liked him. I know he got a lot of slander at points earlier in the season, but I really always thought he was a good player, and I'm glad he's came to form at the right time. I hope he's all right because he came off earlier against MK.
Yeah, it was tactical.
It was actually tactical. I thought it was because I didn't notice. I thought I didn't actually notice till half time. I said, "Is that Jake McKenna?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah." I was like,
No, Steve said afterwards that Josh was really unlucky, but we were being overrun a little bit in midfield, and he said he didn't deserve that at all. So
fair enough. Accrington, what a goal from Nino. Charlie Lakin was a maestro of the whole pitch. We were good. They didn't deserve a goal. Salford was sweet because I just don't like Salford. I don't know why. I think they're just they just annoy me. And Swindon was good as well. We were good that day, and it was just Cole scored again. Yeah, it looked possible. Games in hand was always in the back of my mind, but it looked possible.
Well, yeah, those 4 games, the 4 of the 8 when they started going right, cup final time, which I have to admit, David, you've supported a long time as well, but always made me shudder because we don't do very well in cup finals. So why are you talking about cup finals? But what did you think on the 4 bright games in the season, David?
Well, surprise and delight.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, we all got very excited about it, and I kept having these conversations where I would say here with the family, they would all say, "Oh, well, you're going down anyway. It's all a done deal." I said, "No. We're in there. We're hanging in there," and we were, and so that was fantastic. Because hope it's what you need, isn't it? It's what you do when you support a football club. Essentially, you live more in hope than expectation, and it was fantastic. And it was great. It was great to be able to get to the last game of the season and just at least have a chance.
Yeah.
Because 2-3 months ago it didn't look like we were going to get within 3 or 4 games at the end of the season, to be honest.
Yeah, I've actually named this section "A Little Bit of Hope." That's my little title of this section. Little bit of hope.
Well, I think a little bit of hope on many levels. I think it was a little bit of hope. I mean, seriously, I think it was good because of the results and because it got us back into at least having a slim chance of survival. I think it also cemented the idea that Steve could do a good job. So I think it kind of convinced people and the players and everybody that this could work. So that I hope is going to be important to carry into next season. Because I think had the season fizzled out and we end up rock bottom and 5 or 6 points adrift, I think there'd be quite a big question mark over whether Steve would be continuing or not. Because if the job was, as he said, to come in and save the club from relegation, if he didn't do that, and on top of that, we didn't have much of a response in terms of the quality of play or the signings or the energy levels or even any results, I think it would be very difficult to argue that he would be carrying on, really. Whereas I think now there is some optimism around the club, and even though we've been relegated, I think you think, okay, well, we might just about be good enough to get somewhere near the playoffs next year, and who knows, And I think that was really very important because there's reasons to believe both for whether we may or may not have stayed up last year, but also there's reasons to believe for next year. So good on several levels, I think.
Yeah, we need to. I think to keep on to the 5-year plan, we need to get promoted next season and the season after to get us back into League One. But
let's get back on track.
Yeah, but we lost to Paddy Madden. Stockport. Again, it was a bizarre game. They were top of the league flying, and we were flying at the time. And there was quite a few of us going into that game with a little bit of, we could do this. Stupid people. So we then had disappointing draws against Harrogate and Crawley. Disappointing for Harrogate as well because it kind of killed their hopes. Crawley kept their hopes alive. And the final game of the season, which was just bizarre. It was. I love this. It was Jared that said it. I've said this a couple of times. We don't need to release a DVD of the season. We can just release a DVD of the MK Dons game because basically the first half was rubbish. Second half was really good, but not quite good enough. And it's like, there you go. That's our whole season in 90 minutes. So, David, I'll start with you there because I can see Joe's got a story to tell. He's jumping forward. But how did you feel about those last? We didn't lose any of them. Again, it's the story of our season. We didn't lose any of the games. We didn't win any of them. How did you feel about those sort of 3 games at the end of the season, especially the MK game?
The Harrogate one was a bit of a killer, I think, because we needed 3 and not 1 point. And I think it was there when my confidence started to seep away quite significantly. And the MK Dons game, I think, was a bit of an outlier, really, because by that stage, realistically speaking, by the time we got to halfway through the first half, it was obvious that we were not, both by the result of Colchester and also by the way the game was going, it was clear that the big miracle was not going to happen. So after that, I think it did become a bit of an anomalous game, really. So we drew 4-4, which was obviously a lot better than losing 4-2 or 2-0 or any other combination results. And it was good that they kept going. It was good that we drew and all the rest. But I think in reality, by then, it had become a bit of a anomalous kind of game, really, because it didn't mean much to them. And by halfway the second half, it didn't really matter very much to us in the great scheme of things, apart from all those other things about performance and energy and all that stuff. But the result itself was irrelevant. Well,
we could have finished. We were bottom at one stage. So if we'd lost, we would have finished bottom. So if Morecambe or Reading go bust, no, I'm not going to say that. That's mean. I keep saying it. But Joe, go on.
That definitely is clutching at straws, Mike. Now,
Joe, you were there. I saw you. How was the day?
Oh, it was a good day. I loved the day. It was such a lovely atmosphere. a bit of a party atmosphere from second half onwards because we knew we weren't going down, singing 10 minutes in the Football League and just going down the numbers. It was a nice day, lovely stadium, way too big for the team that were playing in it. Milton Keynes is a really not lovely place. I don't know how did you get that by train or in the coach?
I got on the coach.
Right, me and my mate who I was with, we got the train to Bletchley and walked.
Mm-hmm.
We saw not one person from our entire, genuinely a 25-minute walk. We didn't see a person. We did see people. There were Sutton fans who were on the train with us. I didn't actually see an inhabitant of Milton Keynes until I got into the complex. It was the weirdest thing, and it's just roundabouts, and it's a place which is just odd. But that's by the by. It was a good day. A fitting send-off. And players coming over at the end. Tope getting a start. El getting game, which is always nice because I am a Tope Fadahunzi enthusiast, despite his demise, which we'll get onto. But it was a lovely day. Definitely didn't get lost after the game. After I convinced my mate to go into IKEA, get some meatballs, then leave, then realise I don't know where we are. So then we got on a bus which was going the wrong way. So then we went to Milton Keynes Central and jumped on a train we weren't meant to be on. But still, it was a great day. And it was a fitting send-off to our time in the EFL. And I wasn't sad. I don't know if you were, but I was not at all sad. I was a bit like, the fairy tale has come to an end. We're down. We've been expected to be down. We made a fist of it. And we'll go again next season. And we've had a great time. At points this week, it's kind of set in a bit, especially when Bromley got to the playoff final. And it will set in even more if they do go up, because that will hurt a lot. But if they don't, then I won't care whatsoever. Yeah.
I mean, I thought there might be tears, but I thought the tears would come if it was the miracle. Is where I thought that's where I'm going to panic and just sob. I mean, as David said, it was a fairly big thing to take it to the last day. I know that is a tiny victory, but from where we were, to take it to the last day, and the swing wasn't that difficult. It wasn't like, we need to win 7-0. It wasn't such a horrendous swing. I mean, us winning 2 or 3-0 and then losing 2 or 3-0 wouldn't have been beyond the realms. It was in the end, but hindsight obviously is wonderful. There's been lots of close games. What would you, Joe, have liked to have seen us do slightly differently to get those 3 or 4 points that we needed? So 3 points and a couple extra goals, or 4 points. What would we done apart from not giving away a penalty and scoring a penalty? You've got to pick another couple.
Recruitment. I think we needed. And this is going to be a bit of an interesting one. I think this goes back to our release choices at the end of last season. I think we let too many of the key squad go. I'll be honest. I know Alistair Smith wanted to leave. I think losing Enzio. I know he tried to offer him a contract and he wanted to go, but I think we needed that core a little bit more than I think we thought we would. I think that's where, when I think our recruitment in summer was too many people from too many different places. I think we changed our transfer policy a bit, which was the last 2 seasons build rather than regenerate. And this season we tried to regenerate and didn't go well. I think we needed some players who were maybe a little bit less, and no, this is no disrespect, I'm going to use Amari as an example, a little bit less established. And I think Amari was riding on the fact he obviously he's the playoff hero for Carlisle and all that. And it's going, I'm going to use it, Little Old Sutton, coming down to Little Old Sutton. And some players, I think if you could take them from the National League South and National League, it's like step up. And I feel like some of the players who've been signed thought it was a bit of a step down. And even those who have been here before, and I'm going to mention Dino, because he at points was arguing with fans at Crawley and stuff like that. And that was I think it just didn't make our lives any easier when we were, and the relegation, this is going to sound weird, it was fair. We were the 2 worst sides in the division, and to stay up would be a miracle because we weren't outside of that. We were the worst team in the division for a lion's share of the season. But it's all those if buts and maybes, as we said.
Exactly. Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah. David, what would you have liked to have seen us do differently to get those extra 4 points?
I think Joe put it really well, actually. I agree with him. And this sounds ridiculously simplistic, but play better. I don't think we played that well for a large chunk of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of defensive lapses, or simply the team was too easy to score against. And not enough going forward, not enough creativity in midfield. It made a big difference when Charlie Lakin came. We looked bereft of ideas around the box, the attacking box, and that's it. Not good enough, really. And I don't think there can be any complaints about anything much. I mean, we probably had our share of good luck, bad luck, injuries, suspensions, all the rest of it. That's just what every squad in a league like this one is going to have. So just we weren't good enough. And it was sad because the first 2 seasons in League Two, we'd done so very well. And I think we're all a bit taken aback by the fact that this year, I don't think anyone really saw this coming, or at least I didn't anyway. Did you?
Definitely not. I thought we wouldn't do as well. I thought we would struggle, but I didn't think we would be ever seriously bothered by relegation.
Yeah, Matt was always going on about his 50 points, wasn't it? And I thought, well, 14th, 15th, 16th, somewhere around that.
Yeah.
That level, maybe an FA Cup.
Yeah. If I was being honest, I probably thought a little bit lower than that. I probably thought just sort of outside the relegation zone, sort of 19, 20. Obviously, I don't say that at the start of the season. Obviously, I say we're going to win it and everything. But I thought we'd struggle this year and then have a little bit of a go in the next couple of years. For me, I mean, you both mentioned a couple of little things there. There was a real disconnect this season. There's things where Harry Buteman was being booed by fans. Harry Buteman being booed by Sutton fans because he came over to kind of just apologise and people were telling him to F off. I know it's all emotional and all the rest of it, and I spoke to him and he's like, obviously I get it, I understand it, it's not, I don't take it personally. But there was a definite little disconnect and people feeling like, you made it simplistic saying play better. It was more the trying. I think people can generally, if we play and try and get beaten, most people kind of go, you know what, we got beaten by a better team. Whereas if it's like, you weren't trying, that's where the anger starts.
But Mike, do you think anyone did anyone think they weren't? I never got the feeling that people weren't trying. I don't think that.
There were certain games where you certainly felt it was within them to try harder. There was definitely games where you think 2 seasons ago, that player, not necessarily the particular person, but the Sutton player would have just put that extra bit in to get it. Just that little extra sort of 5%, 10%. But I'm not saying they went out there deliberately to not try, but when things started going their ways, not going against them, I think a few of them were like, oh, do you know what? Let's just get this game over with and move on rather than fighting to make it back in. But we're going to do some one positive, first of all, quickly, before we talk about the released players. In probably the most unsurprising news ever, the player of the season is Charlie Lakin. I think it ended up being like 82% Charlie and 18% Harry. So well done, Charlie. That's basically technically an NFT. I don't still understand what they are, but I've designed that, so technically that's an NFT. We will now talk about the released list, or the retained list, sorry. So we've offered contracts to Matt Kirby, Steve Arnold and Sam Hart. I know one of those names and raised a few eyebrows. And obviously Charlie, Ollie, Juki, Nino and Dino have gone back to their parent clubs. Names that probably weren't very surprising is Lee Angol, who took it very well, it seems. Toby Ogundaga, who didn't really push on since we had him. Brad House, which he's always been around, Scotty, who I think the only contribution Damani Miller made to our season was injuring Scott Casket, or the pass that injured him. And again, upsetting but probably not surprising was Barden and Milsom. I thought we would keep Christian, Ollie, Tope and Dion. Dion really surprised me because especially as we've gone down a division, I thought we would keep those because the wages probably wouldn't be that high for those four. And the big shocks were the three legends. Right, Dundo's probably not a real shock. He's like 400 years old, but he is Dundo. And Easty Beauty. I think they've made it all three of them made it really easy for the club by releasing their little statements saying they've loved their time there. There's no bitterness or anything. Obviously, we don't know whether they just turned around and said, no, we're staying. But Joe, what do you think of the players that were released? Would you have kept any of them?
I don't know. I really don't know. That's not a good podcasting answer, and I'm sorry. But it's a tough one. You can see what he's trying to do in Steve. He wants Steve's Sutton team, not Matt's. And a lot of the players he's released are Matt's passion project. I get it, but I think Rob, John Barden, they're all the ones you said. I thought we'd get rid of Ollie Kinder because he never. I didn't expect that. Tope, I'm gutted. I don't know. I know he maybe. I think he'll rip it. I think if he'll go to a National League club, I think he'll rip it up. Genuinely, I think he's perfect for the National League. He's quick. He literally, genuinely, he's one person who, no matter the circumstances this season, he puts 110% in every game, and he plays for the club badge and wherever he goes. So I've been told from Torquay fans and other things, he is like all-round good guy. Dion Moore.
That really surprised me.
Yeah, but it felt like a bit of a filler signing from Steve there. But it's odd for 6 months to happen. Maybe because Steve said that he saw him and they played Hornchurch when he was playing for Lewis, and he saw something in him. Maybe that wasn't materialising. Dundo, is Dundo released from playing and fitness coach?
I'm not sure. His video. So I thought it was just the playing, but then his video says I'm leaving Sutton. So it may well be both. I'm not actually 100% sure, but it seems like he is because none of the things it says he's been released as a player. So I don't know. I hope to be wrong there, but
yeah.
I'm not
well,
sure.
yeah. I think I'll be honest. I think I kind of expected Easty.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the way the switch to, I know Easty was injured, but the switch to Harry as captain and the way Harry talked on that interview with BBC Radio London, it seemed like Stevie really put the trust in him to be the man to lead him. And I think it's very hard to be such a leader for such a long time and then just continue. Butts, I'm very surprised by it. I thought he'd stay on. I thought Steve would want him to stay on, but I can then see it from the same point of view as Easty. I assume the one you're saying you're surprised by staying on is Matt Kirby.
No, Sam. Because there's a lot of people have blamed Sam for a lot of goals.
Really?
I thought he was good. I think the reason why potentially I was surprised is he seemed to come in, do well, then get injured. And I thought it would be the injury side of things that would make us question whether we want to keep him. But yeah, there's a lot of questions over him.
He was ever present under Steve at the end of the season. I wasn't surprised that Matt Kirby's been on the bench. We haven't really seen much of him. Sorry, seen him cut, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
Steve Arnold, I hope he stays because he's obviously a veteran keeper. I was just noting down who we've got. We actually have a back line for next season. We don't need to do much there. We have. Hang
on one sec. We'll do that in 2 secs. Just want to see what David thinks about the players that was leaving us at the moment. Did any surprise you, or would you have kept any of them?
They disappointed me. So herein lies the rub, as always in life. So you make decisions, and time will tell, right? I would much prefer to go into next season with Craig Eastman and Harry Buteman in the squad by a country mile. Having lived through what we've just lived through, having spoken about what we've just spoken about, we talked about how there was a lot of rotation last year, probably too many changes. So based on that, you'd think, why would we want to go back to the National League and not have our two most experienced players in the squad? Of course, we don't know who's leaving who, right? So we don't know whether the club wanted them to leave and they were wholeheartedly against it, or whether they are actually ready to move on as well, because all of that's never said when people talk about it, right? So I'm not sure the narrative is that the club wanted to get rid of them and they were dead against it. Maybe they also didn't like the new regime and they were quite happy to move on, and you never know what they're planning to do with their lives and what their next steps might be. So who knows? They might end up playing in a National League team with Matt Gray, for all we know. So time will tell. And in terms of the decision for Sutton, then it's a very bold move from the new manager, and we'll see next year whether it all pans out.
Absolutely.
And I think, by the way, I'm sure there's a way to go, because even the players which are theoretically retained, they might still be leaving. So
I was going to say.
So the fact that they haven't been cut at this stage doesn't mean say that they won't leave at some future point.
No,
but there's also going to have to be a lot of news about incomings, isn't there? There must be a whole ton of people that contacts have been made, and some new people are going to have to come in, because right at this precise moment we've only got enough for a kind of hockey team, really. So there's going to be a lot of change over the summer again. Yeah. And the things, I think this level of football is now, people will tell me that it's all become so short term anyway, that people are signing 1 year contracts, 2 year contracts. So it's all the rotation is high. I mean, it really is a kind of one of these rotating doors, you know. People are in and out all the time. And if you think just back to some of the players who have come through in the last year or two, we've had tons of names. Some of them we can't even remember now, probably. But last year we had, as you said, Joe earlier, we had Mella, we had Pareda, and there was Luke Gambin the year before last, and people come and go. It's quite volatile.
It's a difficult job. I mean, Joe was saying we've got a back line for next season. Obviously, as you mentioned, the players under contract doesn't necessarily mean they'll be kicking off the season, because they could be sold. We've actually got a fairly decent starting 11, because you could have Jack Rose.
But Amari Patrick's on the books at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do we really believe he's going to be starting any games for Sutton next year?
No, but this is one of the questions of who are we going to try and offload out of this lot. So we've got Jack, Ben, Joe, Louis, Omar, and Jack Taylor. We've then got Jacko as well, Jay Williams, Clay, Coley, Amari, Smith, and Vinny Toomey, plus potentially Steve Arnold, Kirby, and Sam Hart. Out of those, how many do you think we will be keeping, and where would you like to strengthen? David, we'll start with you on that one.
All over the place. I think it's a real shame that Craig and Harry are not there, because I think that anyone that can play 350 odd games for a club and keep up that level of performance over so many years, those are players you want, in my opinion. Unless you're going to replace them with something better, and something better is going to be difficult. Always difficult to replace something as predictable as that. But anyway, so who's going to still be there? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Really. I mean, I find it hard to believe, just based on sensations that you have from going to the games. It's hard to see how Amari Patrick's going to still be there next year. I think there are one or two others where at the kind of, let's call it the twilight end of their careers, like Harry Smith, maybe Craig Clay, are they going to be interested in playing in the National League if something slightly better comes up? Not sure. We'll find out, won't we?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we've got quiet May, so you won't hear anything throughout May. I'm not sure when the transfer window opens, but I know the contracts run up to the 30th of June, I believe. So there'll be a lot of
transfer window opens, I think, 13th of June, I want to say.
Okay, so there may be some news after that, but on the free transfer side, I don't think you should hear anything. I know lots of other clubs do announce it really early, but Sutton tend to not do that. But Joe,
we're going to be in the world of season-long loans as well, I think.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yeah, with break clauses and all sorts. But he hasn't done too badly in those.
No, I think he's done extremely well. So, more of the same. If we can kind of dip into some of the higher level clubs and get out, the what was, effectively Harry Kane when he went to Orient. No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But 10 of those.
Yeah. But Joe, who do you think will be staying? Where do you think we'll need to strengthen?
Well, currently I'm actually doing a Sutton United recruitment document. Little teaser. And I was looking through our current squad. I have a little document here. I think Jack Rose will leave. I think he will. I know he's still on the books, but I still think he'll leave. I think he's a League Two keeper, and I think, well, from what I've been heard, he has been in touch with Solihull multiple points throughout the season. It's where he's from, and I think he'll go. I think Arnold will stay on. I think Matt Kirby will stay on. I think Show Me will stay on. I think Ben will stay on. I think Joe will stay on. I think Ryan Jackson will stay on because he's also in his twilight. He's 32, 33, so I think it would make sense for him to stay on. I think Sam Hart will stay. Taylor and Williams. I don't think Louis John will stay on. And I know he's been here for a while, but I think he hasn't got the game time in the last few seasons. I know he's been injured at points, but I think I could see him going to and I know a certain Matt Gray is linked with this club, but I can see him going to a Bournemouth or a Dorking or something like that. Because I think he needs to reinvent himself a bit, because whenever he's been on, he's never looked absolutely the Louis John that we've seen in previous years of National Leagues winning season and the season after that. I think Coley will stay. I think Clay and Patrick will go. And I think Harry Smith will really need something to tempt him away, because I think he is Steve Morrison's main man, and I think he is the whole part of the project he's trying to build. And I think if he gets like I don't think anyone, and it would hurt. If he gets an offer from Bromley, I don't think he'll go for it, because I think he actually quite likes. I think he likes the club. I think he's enjoyed his season despite the outcome. And I think the little kind of the way he stayed longer at MK, just giving kind of the longer round of applause and really appreciating the fans. I think he is actually quite attached. But I think if he gets an offer from someone like that, it hurts. I think Salford. Someone said something, because obviously they've let go Matt Smith and they want another kind of tall striker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening, but we've got loads of places to fix. I think Arnold or Steve could be our starting keeper next season. I think there's always shown the evidence he can. I still think we need another keeper. As much as Matt Kirby, I think, is a good keeper. I don't know if he's National League reserve quality because he's been out on loan and Hendon. I think that's kind of my opinion, but we still have a back four with that. We've got Omar, Ben, Kiz, Hart, Taylor, Williams. We haven't seen much of, but he seems like more of kind of someone who Steve has seen and is like, right, he can play for us. But then obviously that leaves us with Coley and Smith. So we need an entire midfield and we need an entire striker. Nino, I could see Nino coming back.
I would, not that he didn't enjoy it. I think we've all enjoyed it. I mean, I know Ollie loved it here, but I think Millwall would be saying, well, hang on, he's done okay at a struggling League Two side.
Yeah.
We'd like to see him play a little bit higher. I was contacted by 2 or 3 Millwall fans, and they said they were really surprised we got him because he's really highly rated up there. One thing we didn't use anywhere near enough with him is his long throw. It was way better than Jackson's on the other side, and it actually landed on some of our players' heads. One bright point from last season is we increased our average home attendance over the whole season, and it's the highest we had in the EFL. So, a struggling team, not playing very well. We did increase attendance. I know, again, these are all little silly things, but you actually wonder how much there will be a drop-off, because if the football was that bad last year, people are going to want to keep coming. Now, judging the MK Dons match, there is a real big core of younger guys who are coming to the football not to watch Sutton. They're just coming to meet up with all their mates like it should be. I mean, what do you put that down to? Joe, I'll start with you. What do you put it down to why we've managed to keep the attendance coming up? I mean, it's not much, but it's still higher than I would have expected it.
I think it'll dip next season. I think league football's a big thing to do with it. But I can only, being one of the younger people myself, I think a lot of people who have only ever really supported Prem clubs, which this is including myself from a few years ago, obviously, there is a beauty of lower league football which you're never going to get at a Prem game. And that is, I think it's much more, the link with the players and the team is much closer than you will ever get if you go to, say, a Chelsea, a Palace, one of these lot. And I think there's a certain element. I think there's a group. I think home attendances will go down next season, definitely, because I think there are, and I'm going to refer to them as 12 to 14 to 15-year-olds who come because they, it's cool to go to the football and wear all black, and that's cool. That's fine. Enjoy it. But I think there's actually my age group. There's a group of us, and I think there's a good 100 of us, 200 of us, who genuinely love the club and love just coming to watch Sutton. And that's grown over the last few seasons, but I don't think that will change because the National League. And it's nice to see because obviously I think the atmosphere has got better over the last few seasons. I thought the atmosphere at MK was good at different points throughout the season and last season. And it's mainly due to the fact that success helps, but I think lower league football, there is a certain attraction and romantic side to it, which you do not get at, let's say, going to Chelsea. And by the by, the prices I definitely, exactly. I've taken number of mates to different games throughout the year, and one of them even goes to is a Dulwich Hamlet fan, and he said, Jesus, I'm going to have to start supporting you lot. Dulwich Hamlet ripping me off for a ticket. I'm coming in for £7. And he said, it takes me 15 to go to Dulwich. I was like, mate, you're coming to the wrong one. He said, yeah, well, they're all clinking their wine glasses at the side of the pitch. So, yeah, it's a nice thing. It will dwindle again, but, I think there is a hub of fans which will stay, which we didn't have when we came up.
Yeah, I mean, it dwindled because a lot of the big attendances we had was away fans with like Bradford. Well, they didn't bring as much as I thought, but you had Stockport bringing quite a few, and I think Wrexham as well brought quite a few. But David, what do you kind of think it is? Despite the season, our attendances were the best we had in the EFL.
Well, they will drop off next year, I think, not least because the away support will drop off. So all of those people coming through the turnstiles from other clubs, that will tail off, I would have thought, quite significantly. Mm-hmm. In terms of the home spot, I agree with Joe that I think some of the growth that there's been will stay because you've got people who have got into it now, so that's great. But it will drop off, I'm sure. It will. Because it's just not quite so attractive to be playing some of the teams in that. There are some games in there which sound good, and there's some other ones that don't sound so good. So yeah, I reckon it will drop off. But I reckon maybe 15%.
Okay.
Down.
Yeah, that's 3. Yeah, I've heard estimates of about 500. So that probably, I think you're saying about 450, 500. So that
maybe a bit more than that, 15-20% if you start counting the away support as well. So that's quite a lot of revenue over the course of a year. And then of course you wouldn't need to explain to the board the other loss of revenue. It comes from the money from the higher leagues, right? So
absolutely.
So we're going to be operating in a very different world next year, and I think some of the growth that has happened in all parts of the club is baked in. Mm-hmm. I think there are other parts of it which I dare say they've got their Excel sheets out now and are looking at what needs to be cut back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to do a last little plug for the Prediction League, which I think Joe did twice. But next year it will start again. So if anyone's interested, drop me an email and I can add you onto the early list so you can get as many points as you can early. But well done to Paul again. His cup's in the other room, but I'll take a picture tomorrow on Twitter. We are going to wrap up this episode. Little plug, if anyone's hearing in time for the fans match tomorrow at Gander Green Lane, I am going to step foot on the pitch. I don't know how long it will be, and I don't know which manager I'm with, and I suspect Mr. Fenton might find it funny to keep me on the pitch for as long as possible. I will be
I'll play next year. Next year I can play, and wherever you're playing, if you're playing up front, I'll be in defence, and if you're playing in defence, I'll be up front.
I won't be anywhere near up front. Paul would rather me be up front, so I'm far away from his goal. But yeah, I don't know what I'll be doing.
And, Mike, if you score, will you be doing a somersault a la?
If I score, would be more of a miracle than we get promoted to League One this season. So yeah, we appreciate the attention. The fans match, that's the little badge. I don't know if it's picked up, but that's the little badge that's going to be on the shirts, everyone. Always appreciate the, come on Joe, say it.
I'm not saying
The attention. I was glad you didn't say it on your podcast. And your feedback, follow, like, share, and follow Sutton Podcast on social medias. There will be various nonsense throughout the summer, so do follow. Don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date with the episodes. Give me the little thumbs up on the YouTube thing. And thank you, as always, to our sponsors, Lucky Star Gin. It's still not in the UK. I think everyone will know what it is. Really appreciate the support this season. I hope I've done okay for you as well. A big thank you for today's panel. Half the panel that said they were doing it. So thank you both, gents. I kept you longer than expected. But Joe, thank you very much. And David, thank you very much. Thank you to the listeners. And I really hope you've enjoyed this episode and this season of Sutton Podcast. I'm going to have a rest and I'll see you all soon. Next up, it's a while, but I'm going to have a break. I've already got some agreements in place, so dates have to be confirmed, but we should have Gary Otto, Steve Morrison, Tim Allison, Steve Salis, Jimmy Dack, possibly Ross White, Matthew Disley, the new commercial director, and maybe a couple others that I've reached out to as well. So I'll ignore the friendlies as always and just get some of these other guys on so we can hear some of the plans that David was referring to, so we will know about the commercial plan and some of the other things going on. I've been assured there's a plan A and a plan B. So take care and we will catch up.
Go soonish. Up or don't go down. There are two plans.
Yeah, exactly. Lovely. Thanks a lot, gents, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.
United!